everybody. This is Carol Maletta. Welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. Welcome to today's episode, where we are joined by Feryal Talebdoost, the founder of GreenPeach Nutrition Company. With over 20 years of experience in the food industry and a deep passion for fruit, Feryal has dedicated herself to empowering families with the knowledge they need to make informed choices about their health. So we're going to go deep into the world of vitamins and supplements for children, exploring how to navigate the complex market and ensure our kids are getting the nutrients they need without exposing them to harmful additives. Feryal will help us understand essential nutrients and give us some tips on deciphering those food labels too. We need all of that. We all need it and are so glad that you are here, Feryal, to help us with that. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Carol. I really appreciate you having me on the show.
So share with us your background in the food industry, because I know that that has a lot to do with you going in this direction, and also your experience as a mother and how that shaped your decision to launch GreenPeach.
Carol, I started in food testing, actually. In my undergrad years, I was at Silker Laboratories and did some food testing. Once I graduated, I continued in a testing arena for food. And after that, I moved on to manufacturing, food manufacturing and a QA quality assurance role for about 18 years. I exited the corporate life to focus on being a mom after that. And I think all of it with that background and being a mom, going through pregnancy and some of the challenges, it kind of set me in the right place to consider this role that I hold in GreenPeach and how we want to go about doing it, because there's 1,000 supplement, businesses and brands out there. And so that's what set me, kind of set up the stage for me. Once I exited the corporate life, I had 2 little kids, and going into that focused, mommy arena, taking kids shopping, doing everything every day and kind of deep diving into what I'm giving my kids, what I'm buying for my kids. I realized, having the background in the manufacturing space, all the stuff that could happen and all the stuff that does happen, with farm to these packaged goods that end up on our kitchen counters. And just, I tell you, if everybody knew of what could go wrong, in some of these products and bottled goods and packaged goods, I think we'd be a lot pickier than we are now in what we buy.
So wait a minute. So I've got some parents here listening and watching, and they're like, what can go wrong? Like, what do you mean? The wrong ingredient getting into our food, or?
It's a whole, I could go on, but here's that short. In a manufacturing space, you get sourcing raw materials. Where are these ingredients? This fresh fruit, where is it coming from? Is it coming from a non-GMO farm? Is it coming overseas? How long it's sitting in a truck? Who's handling these? How are the employees trained at a facility? How are the check and balances within a manufacturing plant? There is so many things that could go wrong between the time that the produce gets picked from a farm or, however this is acquired, depending on, what we're manufacturing, to when this product ends up in the hands of the consumer. And our consumers for GreenPeach are mainly kids. So you can imagine that level of responsibility. I became a different level OCD, putting all of this together and knowing what could happen and what does oftentimes happen. And here's that big item is how people decide to manage their businesses. A business owner in a manufacturing plant that decides, bottom line is that focus will shortcut.
Cut corners, yeah.
Absolutely. I was blessed for 18 years. I was blessed with being partnered with an owner of a company that had such a huge level of he laid a level of importance for quality
Okay.
that it showed me that there's ways to run a business,
Okay.
and people do it in many different ways, and it's really preference. It's harder to go the route of doing it quality first, results first
Mm-hmm.
versus profits, but
Mm-hmm.
it's doable. I lived it, with an owner
Right.
of a company that did it for years, and I'm
Well,
blessed that
so, and so knowing what you know, the background that you have, how does Green Peach then aim to empower families, give them nutritional knowledge, and how do you distinguish yourself from the other supplement manufacturers out there?
So, on the note that, once Green Peach came about and we just, I landed in a space, came out of the corporate world and was commissioned to formulate for a colleague, and found my calling in that space. I realized Green Peach, there's many supplement brands, there's many food manufacturers, there's many, and the way you set, the way to do this is to make sure that we focus
Mm-hmm.
on the results, what we're trying to achieve. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It is the road less taken. I can say that with certainty that it is
Mm-hmm.
not a path that many take, because it is hard financially, physically. Just it takes a long time for a brand to develop a process where things flow the way that they should, so that end result is achieved without
Mm-hmm.
compromising health. In addition to profits. Without profits,
You
none of
can't
these
continue.
businesses would be around. Business
Mm-hmm.
is not a business if profits are not there, but it's important that that focus remains, and that's what we've tried to do in the 5-6 years that we've been around. Nobody thought we'd sustain, and we have. The way that we do it is we opted out of gummy bears when everybody was doing gummy bears for strictly for the profit margin. There's
Mm-hmm.
no other reason for gummy bears other than the profit margin.
Oh, really?
The
Okay.
40% less in absorption rates, and all the sugar, and the what it does to the enamel of the teeth. Let me tell you,
Yes.
we have round tables with physicians, dentists, pharmacists, and people that we sit around. It's and formulate. It's not a one man show. It's not me and
Mm-hmm.
two other people. There's at least 11, 12 people that are involved fully in formulations and how this will lay out in the finished product. When the dentists heard about this option of supplements as, in a gummy
Gummy.
bear form, it's like, no.
And gummies are so popular. And I can't pinpoint the year that I began to see so many of them on the shelves, and not just for children's vitamins, but adults as well. And so that's really interesting what you're saying, that it's certainly a cost factor, but on the downside for us in terms of the absorption rate, what you're talking about here,
So
that is
every
something.
every $10 that you pay for a gummy, you're
Yes.
getting $4 worth, if that. But not just the $4 worth. You're actually also acquiring disadvantages with that.
Yes,
You
because
know,
yeah, because I it's funny. I don't remember when my children were younger, gummies, now gummy bears and candy, that was certainly popular, and
it
they
still
didn't get
is. I
that.
still,
Well, no, yeah, but they
yeah.
not the vitamins. They weren't the vitamins at that time. My children are 25. But I know that I would not let them eat that. Because what you talked about on the teeth and everything, I don't like that sensation. And I did not want that for them. And I didn't let them have the gummy vitamins. But wow, I mean, what you have said there, I hope parents
Well,
are really
imagine,
paying
Carol,
attention
you
because,
know, imagine telling your kids, candy in moderation, this junk food, you can't
right,
eliminate. I'm not
right.
an all or nothing kind of
Mm-hmm.
a person myself, but
Mm-hmm.
you can't eliminate. But gummies and candy in moderation, but here you go every morning. This is good for you. It's going to make you strong. They don't know about the disadvantages. This is a marketing trick to get people to
Wow.
use what is easy for people, but really, as far as the functional side of things, it's not where it needs to be. And I think it was the wrong path that we took. A lot of people are catching up. It's kind of getting much less popular, but
Okay.
marketing is meant to promote stuff that's easy and get it, put it right there. It's tempting. I mean, I've bought gummies years back, and and as I learned what it takes to make these and what it does
Mm-hmm.
out, I just, it doesn't work. These are not the solutions we're looking for.
Well, let's talk about the solutions and what parents should be looking for. What are the most important vitamins and minerals that are crucial for our children's development? And how can parents ensure that their children are getting enough of it, both through supplements and also through their food?
Oh yeah. The vitamins and minerals, when we're asked that question, Carol, I think the best answer is you cannot have a single approach to everybody. Environmental factors, whether a person lives in a, high rise or in a farm, a place where kids can play, indoors, outdoors, lifestyle, how much screen time, daily routines, physical activity, socioeconomics, how much can parents really afford to pay for a meal that might cost $25 versus $50 at some of the regions and locations that some of this organic produce is really costly. This is,
Okay.
and genetic factors, obviously, all of this plays a role on what kids need. But there are staples,
Sure.
many people are now know that, that they themselves and their kids are lacking vitamin D, enough vitamin D. Vitamin D should be in every household because things are changing. Our bodies are absorbing differently, based on several factors, environmental factors. But I think that's not really a question to answer singularly. It really has to do with the lifestyle, what kind of diet, how involved are parents in making homemade meals every day at home versus, squeezing in those outside restaurant meals, whether wholesome or not, they're still not home cooked. They are not sourced maybe from the right places. So vitamin D, omega-3, probiotics, a lot of these are really key factors in today's 21st century type of lifestyle that everybody lives. But that question is really dependent on, how, where, who, and in what capacity are you able to really create a space where, it makes sense,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So it's vitamin D. It's essential for everybody. But we decided. I mean, there was a hype with vitamin D, and there still is. Then some folks said, you know what? Don't use sunscreen when you go out. Use sunscreen when you go
What?
out. Oh, there's so many ideas and so many
Oh gosh.
agendas with. Now there is folks that are saying we don't need as much sunscreen. I mean, everything in moderation. Balance is key to everything. I think what we are proud at GreenPeach that we've done is brought in the research, solid research that's science-backed, and summarized these in ways that it's easy and accessible. Parents don't have time to go read pages and pages of these things, deciphering between 5 different sets of research. It's like, where do we need to be? No, I didn't have time. That was my biggest frustration. Going to a store, it's like, who do I trust? What to trust? What research do I trust? Well, we do all that anyways for our products. What we need to do and what we're trying to achieve, what is most needed, and how to fix these problems. So sharing these with our parents are a huge offering, and empowering parents to learn in a quick way, without spending hours and hours.
It sounds like already we know that gummies don't seem to be the best form for the vitamins. And of course, we know that food is probably best. But for those parents that want to have a supplement because they just want to make sure that if they miss anything with their meals, that their child is covered. How do you recommend that parents choose safe and effective, the emphasis on effective supplements for their children?
So first and foremost, it's everybody needs to have a KPI is what we call them on, a set of data points where, we get through blood testing. Symptoms are huge. All us moms pick up symptoms like this. I mean, before blood tests kick in, we pick up on things and we're like, okay, you know what, maybe what's going on? We go researching and
Sure.
find out things. So blood tests and pediatricians, physicians that monitor yearly checks and so forth are the best. But those are really the ways to know that you are deficient. But this, I will say, Carol, when parents ask me, well, we have a wonderful, lifestyle with a lot of foods that are wholesome and organic, there's gaps.
Sure.
I can guarantee you there's gaps in everybody's diets in some form or another. It needs to initiate from data points, but knowing that there is gaps, you want to pick up on where to, place your focus. When teens are too, they snap at the sight of anything and everything, and they're anxious and, maybe depressed. Why are suicide rates so skyrocketing like this in Western world? Why is that? Yes, I believe social media and phones have a lot to do with it.
Sure.
But nutrition is that baseline that we all need to support all of that anguish that comes from the environment. And instead, of really researching and looking into companies that we can trust. And when I say we research, when we want to buy car seats, we research. When we want to go and buy, put our kids in school, we research the school, because it's an immediate result that we see from these decisions. Supplements, unfortunately, these health implications don't have immediate implications. So we don't do as much research where we should, because some of these fixes are quick fixes that need to happen. Now, how do we pick companies? Third-party testing, certifications that are critical, but it's important for parents to look into, preservatives. If an ingredient list on a bottle of anything looks like a chemistry exam, skip it. I mean, just skip it. Because there is nothing that is derived from nature that is so hard to read and pronounce that is potentially good for you. In the world of medicine, yes, but as we try to remain preventive, which is where we need to start these efforts and initiate these very early on, I think it's critical that we do our diligence with finding brands that we can trust. Ask questions. If brands are not answering your questions, if you're emailing them about anything and you don't get you get a vague answer, or you're getting a no answer, that's your answer. I think that should set itself, it's like, no, this is not, I'm trusting these people with my kids' health. And that's not it shouldn't be taken lightly by brands. There's websites, there's databases, we provide a huge summary of items that are critical to knows for parents, in preservatives that we need to look for, dyes and artificial coloring. Artificial coloring in January, what is it? The dye red number 3 was finally declared as no longer acceptable. But guess what?
Good.
These products are allowed to remain in manufacturing plants until January of 2027 and 28. What do we do in the meantime? It's our responsibility. Not every manufacturing and brand will immediately take these out because now they know. Now, this research was established in 2011. Finally, it was banned. So this is not like a new
not news
piece of information. I think it's critical that that parents do their research on what brands. And
Okay.
once you trust the brand and you do your research, once you're given a reason not to trust, then be
Right.
very wary of how you go about doing that.
Yes.
What I want, what I pray that we have achieved so far and will continue to, is develop the level of trust where a parent will look at GreenPeach and say, I know what drives these guys. It's not, you don't have to pick up a GreenPeach bottle and look at a label and say, it's a trust issue, because that brand,
Right.
you already know that person,
Mm-hmm.
you know what drives us is
Mm-hmm.
establishing a criteria where we educate, do
Mm-hmm.
parents know that these dyes have behavioral implications for
Impacts.
kids?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Red 40 is still legal and it's still creating issues, but I don't know when that will be on the list to shoot out.
Hey, Mama, I get it. I remember those early days of motherhood, feeling totally outnumbered and out of my depth with my twin boys. Mother's Work, Pearls of Wisdom and Gems for My Journey is the book I wish I'd had back then. In my mini motherhood memoir, I share the real, unfiltered moments, from overwhelm to breakthroughs. Along the way, I discovered 7 guideposts that helped me find my footing, and I think they'll do the same for you. And guess what? I'm giving the book away free. Just head to mothersworkthebook.com to grab yours. Just pay shipping and handling, and also get your hands on some wonderful bonuses. You don't have to do this alone. Let's walk this journey together. That's mothersworkthebook.com. Can't wait for you to read it.
You've definitely mentioned some things that parents can look for on the label, the dyes, and then, as you said, it should be simple. It should not be these complicated compounds and chemicals within the supplement. So that should certainly be a red flag
A red
for
flag. And
parents.
Carol, one other thing I'm going to share with you, and we've just discovered this on our labels.
Mm-hmm.
Natural flavors, although not every company does this, and that's not the
Okay.
intention, a lot of times it's an umbrella to hide chemicals and processed blends that are actually hiding a lot of the ingredients and items
Wow.
that are not good for you. Stay away from those, blanket categories in an ingredient statement. Natural flavors, you would assume they're natural. Not at all. They are
Wow.
cover schemes for a lot to put into ingredient statements that when you even read them, that shouldn't be trusted. So when you see something and you really like it, the kids enjoy the flavoring and you can incorporate it, then ask the brand, email the brand and ask them about certain, criteria. Non-GMOs are huge. Non-GMOs in themselves is not a problem. It's the high level of preservatives that are used for, the GMO modified, genetically modified produce that is creating hormonal imbalances in kids,
Goodness.
ADHD, and a lot. Then parents are forced to throw medicine at. And then it's a vicious circle, and it doesn't solve. It puts a Band-Aid, and this Band-Aid doesn't sustain. It's not a sustainable model for long-term, health and well-being.
Well, yes. I appreciate you sharing this information. Now, that brings me to, you talked about the long term. We know that children's nutritional needs change over time. Talk about which supplements might be beneficial at different ages and different stages of development.
See, like there's facts, there's research that D3 is something that is definitely needs to be considered for like breastfed infants, probiotics, omegas for even the mom when they're breastfeeding and
Sure.
prior. Iron, vitamin C, zinc for the toddlers, in that arena to have a foundation for immunity as they kind of step outside the boundaries of home, with school-aged kids, B complex, as they start developing stress levels. It's like, oh my God, this homework or all the activities they're involved in and juggling all that, magnesium to help them ease the body and relax and maybe develop, give muscles what they need for these sports that they're involved in. These are all specifics that kids need. Then the preteens and teens.
Sure.
Then they go out in the world and they're doing all sorts of stuff. No matter what we practiced at home, they take out these experimentals at school and they try different things. They develop, digestive issues. Their hormones are developing and they're trying to create a balance within their bodies, but the food is not supporting that.
Right.
That's where supplements are essential, is key. I believe wholeheartedly that every person living in this day and age needs one form of supplement or another.
Well, that's
there's
good.
gaps.
That's good to hear, because I'm a vitamin girl. I don't overdo it, but I've always, when I was a young child, I mean, I ate well. My mother cooked good food for us, but I also took vitamins, and I have just carried that on. And I was hoping I wasn't going to come to this conversation and have
no, but you know what? There's gaps.
Right.
You reduce the exposure and the problems that we're facing. You'd prefer to do it through prevention than medicine. Right. And that's the key. That's where we're at, unfortunately. So reduce. I'm going to give you, I'll tell you, Carol, there's examples of what I'm talking about, and it gets a lot more serious. And, the time frame for this podcast is not enough to even cover the tip of the iceberg. But, for like teens and preteens, phthalates, they're plastics. They're found in plastics, fragrance, shampoos, deodorants, and food packaging. Can we really avoid it 100%? No, but we can reduce. Parabens, they're everywhere. Lotions, moisturizers. How many people actually look for this stuff to avoid them? And a lot of people think these are exercises that might be, I call them, OCD type of folks. No,
right.
These are issues that are happening in kids. These are problems that are popping up in kids. And instead of throwing medicines at it and just saying it's genetic or we can't do anything and just kind of finding ways, there are ways to alleviate these symptoms. Parabens can be pushed out. These things mimic estrogen. They create hormonal imbalances. BPA, it's huge. Forever chemicals, the PFAS ones for nonstick cookware. These are not conspiracy theories. These are actual facts. Research, science-based actual facts. Fast food wrappers and like microwavable popcorn bags. I mean, these are simple little things, but they're there. And minimizing will have a huge impact, because for anyone to think they can cut it down to zero exposure,
that's hard to do. Now, you mentioned BPAs. Tell us what those are.
BPA are bisphenol A is the name of the but they're in canned food linings, they're in plastic wrappers, bottles. When they say, the plastic water bottles that is everywhere.
Yes.
A lot of them now say BPA free on the ones that we recycle and reuse, but the wrappers that we get are food wrapped in, they're not BPA free. These are not BPA free. These are plastic type materials that mimic estrogen.
That's why I wanted to ask, because I know a lot of people see BPA, so that's why I wanted you to explain that, and where it is and where we experience
they're linked to early puberty. Their weight gain in kids. It's not all about what they're eating. And 90% of it, I think it is.
It's packaging. Packaging too, it sounds like.
Insulin resistance, if that's something you've heard of, this is one of those items that's shown to contribute, be a contributing factor. Mood swings. We look at our teens and think mood swings are always associated with just them being teens.
Yes.
Yes and no, but
do
you really want to miss the food factor, the nutrition profile factor in kids, and just let them struggle with the challenges of that, and us as well as parents,
Yeah, I want to shift to another hot button issue, and that's organic foods. We have a lot of grocery stores that have whole sections devoted to this, and of course, there's a premium for it. Talk about that, how it compares to non-organic in terms of nutritional value and safety for children, and really all of us. But talk about that.
So organic is great. I think
Mm-hmm.
organic is great. Is it affordable? Oftentimes, no. It's
Mm-hmm.
so pricey. Organic is
Mm-hmm.
so pricey. It should
Mm-hmm.
be. There's a dirty dozen that we call, we have guidelines and,
Mm-hmm.
we, I'll share that with you and you can share it with your audience. Is that we have a list of how to buy and what to buy in organic. That should
Mm-hmm.
be that baseline. It's great, but is it doable in everything? No. First,
Mm-hmm.
it's not accessible to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And organic, as great as it is as an idea, there's two things about organic produce that most people are not aware of or they don't think about. Is
Okay.
organic eliminates a lot of pesticides
Yep.
and antibiotic resistance bacteria in meat and the exposure to all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But does it necessarily mean it delivers a higher nutritional value? Absolutely not. I share this with everybody. Here's a fun fact, and I don't
Okay.
know, sad fact to me, I think. An orange 50 years ago would be equivalent to 23 oranges today in the nutritional value. And that's an
Wow.
organic. I mean, when you compare organic to organic, why? Our soil is depleting and
Mm.
its soil depletion is a huge issue and
Okay.
it's creating a big loss in nutritional values. Like iron is less than 50%
That's
from
potent.
decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's that's huge. That's huge. Apples
Mm-hmm.
are 30 to 40% less in studies by the USDA,
Mm-hmm.
from 1963 to the 2000s. That's huge. But is it beneficial to buy organic? Absolutely. You'll
Mm-hmm.
eliminate and reduce a lot of the chemicals that is
Mm-hmm.
used in
Mm-hmm.
non-organic.
Mm-hmm.
But is it a must? No. For those that it isn't, there is a top 12 that
Okay.
I'd be happy to share with you. And I think every parent needs to know this. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to buy. It's not an all or
Everything.
nothing approach.
Right.
It's
Mm-hmm.
reduce, and reduce. And
Mm-hmm.
when you do that, you make a movement towards alleviating some of these issues that pop up as a result.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. Now, how would you, I'm trying to think, what, like you mentioned the Dirty Dozen, what resources or tools do you share at GreenPeach to parents to help them make these informed decisions about nutrition and supplements for their children?
So, in an effort to not just be a product-based business, because
Mm-hmm.
I think supplements need to be not a replacement, but
Mm-hmm.
a support system to
Mm-hmm.
wholesome food. Food should be that primary source and that first item on that line to fix. You know,
Okay.
get good quality, clean food. But what we've tried to do is create a platform, Carol, that offers guidance and summaries of research and information that's hot topics, in
Mm-hmm.
our opinion, and every parent should know about. Supplement guides. There's a ton of supplement guides that are available. Those that are on a subscription basis on our website or
Okay.
know of us and the brand know about these guides because we share this.
Mm-hmm.
This informational blogs. In come May, we have a platform that will only be available at a subscription, $5 a month. This
Mm-hmm.
$5 a month goes in 100% goes towards nonprofit organizations like Groundkeeper, Waterkeeper Alliance, Kiss the Ground, Earth Justice type organizations that have a lot to do with replenishing the soil and our
Mm-hmm.
natural resources. But it's an exclusive community. We offer lives. We offer an area where backed by science. It's everything that you would see in a research paper. If you look at any research material, they're not very easy to kind of put together and make sense of.
Right.
If you don't do this all day, every day. I mean,
Right.
I wasn't able to do that back even at my manufacturing years. It took a while before I made sense of what does this really mean, We've summarized these in guidelines and, in guides that list some of these baselines for parents. The basics, going back to the basics. That needs to be shared. I tell you, that's where our biggest passion is sharing these. When we're at expos or at talking to parents and share these bits and pieces, and we see parents like this, it's like, oh my God, seriously?
Right.
There's been kids with ADHD that have reverted from medicine back to supplements that have alleviated so many symptoms that is just, and we get emails that, educating it's a powerful tool. It's just that
agree.
not everybody really has the time, what you do for parents and what every organization does, educating in the right way. I think it's a powerful tool that parents should really utilize because it does go a long way, short term and long term,
Yeah. Now, looking ahead, then, how do you see the role of nutrition, potentially supplements, evolving and helping to address the health challenges that so many of our children are facing today? Like you've mentioned a few: obesity, diabetes,
depression,
ADHD,
anxiety,
depression,
a lot of
anxiety.
it. Yeah,
Sure.
it's these nutrition. I think everybody is getting a lot more involved in knowing there's issues in our supply chain, in our food
Mm-hmm.
supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
That's fact. I used to not say this 5 years ago, but I can comfortably say after everything, all the learning that's happened and all the roundtables that we've sat around with professionals, because that's what we do. We collaborate. Every person needs supplements, period. And how and what and how much is to be determined based on the individual need. Where we're headed, there's a lot of activity in cleaning up the supplement space. It's not a very regulated industry, but it's getting there. But it's not going to be fast enough. My kids, I have college kids, but I also, watch carefully my niece and nephew, and they're 10 and 6, and I'm thinking, they need support. They need nutritional support. That nutritional support first comes from food, then supplements. Where this is headed, it's not fast enough in my opinion that we will clean up this space and everything. Due diligence needs to come from brands, and sometimes it doesn't. It's the focuses with brands are different depending on what brand we're talking about, and that's critical to know. Where we're headed, yes, we're possibly in the right direction. We're mindful a lot more than we were. We're not aware that our nutrition and natural resources are being depleted. Our soil is depleted. So even that organic produce is not delivering the right amount of nutrition that we think it does. All that really does for us is eliminate the pesticides and some of the stuff that helps grow these
which is not nothing, actually.
No, it is. It's not. It's significant, actually. But we can't confuse what we're putting in,
right?
And not just what we're eliminating, but also what we need to put in to replenish and support these developmental phases for each child and ourselves. I'm not a kid, but I rely on supplements at my age, and without them, I don't know. I'm a completely different person. We are what we eat, and my young body doesn't compensate anymore. So I think it's important.
Well, thank you so much. Can you share how our listeners and those who are watching can follow GreenPeach?
Our website, where we have skipped all distribution channels. You come strictly to the source, and that's GreenPeach. we are redesigning our website to make it a lot more user-friendly for first-time visitors. People that know us and know the brand and have been, using the products know the kind of information we share. But the website, I would, subscribe to the newsletter. It's not an every week newsletter, so it's not going to inundate any inboxes. I made sure of that because that's annoying to me personally.
So it's greenpeach.com.
It's greenpeach.com. And then our social channels that I think is critical because you'll see a shift towards a lot more informative information, the must knows for parents to be able to make the right movement towards a nutritional baseline that our kids truly need to thrive, not just to survive, this process, but to thrive.
Well, thank you so much. We've learned so much from you today, Feryal, and parents out there, empowering yourself with knowledge is really the first step toward creating a healthier, happier future for your family. Thank you all for tuning in. And don't forget to grab a copy of my mini motherhood memoir, Mother's Work, Pearls of Wisdom and Gems from My Journey. It's available at mothersworkthebook.com. That's mothersworkthebook.com. And it's a heartfelt collection of stories and insights, and it's designed to inspire and support you on your own motherhood journey. Plus, you'll get some awesome bonuses, including my webinar, Do You Hear Me? Staying Connected in the Chaos, along with the companion workbook that will help you to build strong communication with your children. And I can't wait to talk to you next time. And remember, it is never too late to be the parent you want to be. Thank you again for joining me, Feryal, and I can't wait to talk to you all again next time.
We bring you this episode for the purpose of information and entertainment only. It is not the intent or purpose of the Parenting 411 podcast or Carol Maletta to provide an exhaustive reference or guide on all aspects of parenting, childcare, and family life. You are strongly encouraged to read all available information, consult medical or other appropriate professionals, and pursue all reasonable means to learn as much as possible about parenting to complement what you gain here, and then tailor the information to meet your individual needs. Yes, parenting is a serious matter, though it is not an exact science. The context and insights offered in this and every episode represent an account of knowledge and personal experiences of the host and any featured guests for the viewers' and listeners' information and consideration. The host and guests do not guarantee to our viewers or listeners any specific parenting outcomes from this episode or taking actions described here.